You guys had this report at Just the News that the Ohio Secretary of State had referred more than 1,200 criminal cases.
Huge.
To. Yeah, okay, so just you do it because it's your reporting, your exclusive reporting at Just the News. Tell us what we need to know about this referral, because when I read your story, I was like, again, blown away. Mostly because the media tells you that none of this stuff ever exists.
That's
I'm
right.
not giving it away because I want you to tell everyone, what is this referral about and how big of a deal is it?
Well, let's start with the narrative that isn't true, that people don't register when they're non-citizens, and non-citizens never vote in elections, because that has been disproven over and over and over again. 2 years ago, the Secretary of State of Texas found 12,000 non-citizens who had made it onto the voter rolls. The Texas improved their election integrity with voter ID. They thought that they had a really clean 2024 election, but Texas took advantage of a new database that Donald Trump made available and the Homeland Security Department made available that allows you to make sure someone's a citizen or not. And when they compared their pretty clean voter rolls by standards of other states, they found 2,700 people whose name, address, and identity matched a non-citizen who had gotten on the voter roll, and as many as 130 of them looks like they voted. That's a large number of non-citizens voting in election, and a super large number of people getting in position to vote when the system is pretty good in Texas. Imagine what it could be in California where the system's not good. There's not voter ID. Then just a few days after that announcement, the second state comes forward that also used the SAVE database. That is the state of Ohio. And its Secretary of State comes forward, Frank LaRose, and says, in the last 24 hours, we have found over 1,000 people in our state, which, by the way, also has Ohio has very good voter identity and voter registration rules, much stricter than California or New York or Illinois. We found over 1,200 people that may have illegally registered or illegally voted, including 100 or so people that were non-citizens who appeared to have voted, and some people who are citizens but voted twice in 2 locations. And I'm not wasting the time to send that back to Democratic county prosecutors or Democrat might turn their blind eye, not do it. I'm going to send them all to the Public Integrity Unit, which oversees voter integrity in the Trump Justice Department, and we're going to have the feds prosecute these people. That is one of the largest single one-day referrals of potential criminal activity I've ever seen covering election integrity in my life. 1,000 people, more than 1,000 people didentified in a single day by the Secretary of State to the government. Now, on the flip side of this, we just happen to have Harmeet Dillon on our television show as this was going down. She's the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, and she oversees election integrity, civil rights, and civil liberty protections. And she says, listen, we are going to begin punishing states who are not keeping these voter rolls. If you knowingly and willfully don't clean up your voter roll, you knowingly and willfully create a situation where illegal aliens or non-citizens who are lawfully in the country but not legal to vote get on, we are going to start to punish you. That may mean lawsuits, it may be prosecutions, it may mean pulling your federal funding, which could cripple some of these states going forward. This has been a big week for election integrity. And one of the things that Harmeet told us is that there are 8 states now that have gotten letters from her saying, you're in danger of grave penalty. Clean it up quick or you're going to be penalized. I think you're going to start to see those penalties in the next couple of weeks.
Let me guess, the 8 states are all run by Democrats?
I think it's a pretty good guess that that is true.
All right, I hate to interrupt this conversation, but tonight, if you are looking for a great night's sleep, I'm going to help you big time. I switched over to Boll and Branch sheets, and my goodness, they have made a huge difference. They are so comfortable to get into every night. I love them so much. I literally ordered a second pair the other night and paid for them myself. That's how great these things are. And you can join me as well. The thread count, the quality is unbelievable. There's a 30-day guarantee, so you literally have nothing to lose. If you want a better night's sleep, it starts with your bedding. Go to bollandbranch.com/Spicer to save 15%. That's BOLLAND branch.com/Spicer for 15% off and free shipping. bollandbranch.com/Spicer for a great night's sleep. All right, back to the conversation. It's not time to go to sleep just yet. All right. Well, I want to stick with this DOJ type of thing because you guys have done a lot of reporting on what they call Arctic
Arctic
frost.
frost.
Oh, okay. There you go. I can tell you're teed up.
I love that story.
Okay, so tell again. Let's walk down this. What is Arctic frost? Why were Republican members of Congress being investigated, and where is this going now?
Yeah, so I've covered the FBI for about 35 years, and I've probably read a lot of predicated memos of investigations that I got under FOIA or would get in a court case later through discovery. Arctic frost is one of the most oddly predicated investigations I've ever seen. It's up there with Russia collusion. And in many ways, it mirrors the effort to give the veneer of a criminal investigation to something that really has a political motive or a political beginning to it. Arctic frost is started more than 15 months after January 6th, but it is purportedly a criminal case about January 6th. And the January 6th case originally started with, well, people pierced the Capitol, they raided the Capitol, they rioted at the Capitol, we're going to punish all the people. But somewhere along the line, someone came up with the idea in Congress and in the Justice Department and inside the FBI that they ought to treat what Donald Trump supporters did in trying to get alternate electors. Some people call them fake electors, fraudulent electors. We'll use all three terms. You pick the one you want. To the Senate before the Senate voted on January 6, 2021. Now, waiting 15 months for that is really odd. Waiting that long after a criminal case, after an alleged criminal act to begin opening a case when, in fact, all the facts were out and open the day it was going on, right? Why did you wait 15 months? Well, let's put it on a timeline. This case is opened just a couple days after Donald Trump announces he's going to run for re-election again in 2024. He's back in the game. By the way, his polling numbers are coming up at this point too, because Joe Biden has had such an abysmal start to his presidency with the open borders, the Afghan failure. So the Democratic establishment realizes, oh my God, we thought we killed Donald Trump after 20. He's back. And then all of a sudden, beyond the cases that they were legitimately prosecuting of people who assaulted officers or trespassed into the Capitol, they're going to look at MAGA Inc. and Donald Trump as a criminal conspiracy to put fake, fraudulent ballots into the counting process on January 6, 2021. Now, there's a lot of things about this, and until last night, I never got the opening electronic communication from the FBI, but I got it. We're going to make it public in the next 24 hours. You're going to get it first on your show today. It is a memo that is 15 months into the crime, alleged crime, and it uses words like Donald Trump's campaign. We have evidence suggesting Donald Trump's campaign may be involved. Some of its suggestions come from CNN articles, not exactly the greatest evidence in the world, news articles. 15 months in, shouldn't you have testimony and records and emails? Nope, they're using CNN articles to predicate this case. But the single most glaring thing about this memo is it criminalizes the act. It says that this clearly violates federal law. Now, all you have to do is type into Google, if you're an FBI agent, the words alternate electors, and you very quickly will get a history lesson. There were two prior times in American history where alternate electors, or if you want to use the more nefarious terms, fraudulent electors or fake electors, were injected into the system. The first was 1876, the election of 1876, where the losing candidate, Tilden, actually submitted to Congress fake electors, alternate electors, fraudulent electors from South Carolina. And it was made as a decision not to prosecute in any way the people involved in that, because the determination was Americans have a right to redress their grievances before Congress. So the act of submitting those electors, fake, fraudulent, or alternate, was never prosecuted in 1876. And then in 1960, during the Kennedy election, when Hawaii was uncertain, at a moment when Nixon was still in the vote count lead in Hawaii, two sets of electors were offered, one for Kennedy, one for Nixon. And Congress accepted both of them. Clearly, one of those two electors were fake, right? Or alternate, because you can't have two people win the state. And then weeks later, the Congress picked Kennedy over Nixon as the vote counting kept changing. And Nixon lost his lead and Kennedy got the lead. And then they used one of the two alternate electors and made them the legitimate electors. Again, No one was prosecuted for that act. The FBI memo is completely silent on that historical lesson. And that's very unusual when you have a political crime, a crime that is emanated in a political dispute, not to go back and look at how was the law applied and are we applying the law fairly and evenly. This memo is void of that entire discussion. Rather, it just uses CNN articles and suggestions to open up a criminal case. And the breadth of what they're opening up on is a shotgun blast. Most predicated criminal referrals or opening of cases involve a narrow group of people. We believe the evidence suggests or shows that this person did this with these 4 people, and this is the crime. This predicating memo is a shotgun spray a mile wide. We're going to look at the president and vice president, Pence and Trump. We're going to look at 160 Republicans of all different ilk and type. We're going to look at 8 senators, 1 House member, even though they were doing their constitutional duties that day. And we're going to look at 92 conservative groups. That is not a carefully predicated, narrow, evidence-based thing. It is a fishing expedition. You're sticking your line in the water, and you have all the names you want, and then you'll try to find the crime for each of them. This is a very unusual predicated memo. We're going to make it public tomorrow so the whole world can see. But I think it's troubling. It follows like what happened in Russia collusion. At the end of the day, Russia collusion was a political dirty trick and really a political opposition research project that came from Hillary Clinton and then was given to the FBI to give legitimacy. In what we believe Arctic Frost will ultimately turn out to be, based on the early evidence, is the Democrats in Congress, the Democratic deep staters in the National Archives, and the Democrats in the Justice Department and the FBI had a political opposition theory. They wanted to put a line in the water, and they legitimized it, and they went fishing under the powers of the FBI and the DOJ. And John, you'll say, John, that's an overreach. Prove to me that anyone was anti-Trump. The agent who works this case, Tim Debo, openly posted anti-Trump sentiments on his social media case. He's one of the guys at the start of this case. He's involved running it. He's the guy talking to the Biden White House and to the Biden archives. So yes, an anti-Trump person was involved in the instigation and carrying out of this early case. And some of the early evidence doesn't come from witnesses. It comes from Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson, 2 Democrats who are pretty clearly overtly anti-Donald Trump. So yes, it does have a lot of the similarities of weaponizing an FBI system with political Democratic talking points or opposition research or wants and wishes. And it doesn't follow the normal process of an FBI predicating a very narrow case based on evidence. It's based on suggestions and CNN articles and the wants of the Democratic world.
All right. So is anyone going to be held accountable on this front? I mean, like whether it's Liz Cheney or Benny Thompson or anyone in the FBI? Because, I mean, this agent, this is, again, another mind-blowing thing, that the idea that you're using CNN reporting 15 months afterwards to go after 160 people and groups on the right.
Yeah, and some of them in the predication memos and in the early documents, there's no description of what crime they committed. They just said, oh, this guy did this for Trump, or this worked for this in this capacity. Right. It's a fishing line. It's unlike anything I've seen. Well, the answer to your question, Sean, goes back to what we just talked about at the beginning of the show. Remember, January 6th committee members got pardons. And so the first thing is, are those valid pardons? Because if they are, then...
But now it makes sense.
It's all tied together.
Oh my gosh, the dots are connecting, John Solomon. I'm like, wait a second. Maybe they were like, this wasn't out of, it was funny. At the time, everyone kept saying, why did they need them? Why did they need them? But if in the back of their mind, they were thinking ahead, did we just answer the question? That's why they needed them.
It is a very important question. The dots are connected. Now we need to see if anything that anyone did was criminal. And there's a lot of questions to be asked, right? Was any incentive given to January 6 witnesses to change their stories? We know some witnesses changed their stories, right? Were there any gathering phone records that would have violated our civil liberties so they did an end run around it? One of the questions I have is, how did Congress get all these 30 million lines of data that I was able to break a couple of weeks ago? Where did that data come from? Did it come by subpoena? Did it come from the National Archives? Did it come from phone companies? Was some of it volunteered? And when Congress gave it, did they just hand it to the FBI rather than make the FBI go through a court-approved search warrant or a grand jury-approved subpoena? These are really important questions, and it takes us back to a very important person we just talked about. Harmeet Dillon has said on my show, if someone knowingly and willfully violated someone's civil liberties, we're going to treat that as a crime, not as a civil matter. So a lot of what these dots are connecting now, we're going to have to go back and say, did these actions rise to criminality? And we don't know the answer yet, but I know from my own reporting what Harmeet is doing, what Pam Bondi is doing, what Kash Patel is doing, what Dan Bongino is doing. The wheels of justice are now turning towards answering, did some of these actions arise to crime? And then do the pardons apply to people who are able to get pardons, like an Adam Schiff or a Liz Cheney, to be determined. But it is all tied together in one big soup bowl.
Can I will you indulge me real quickly?
Sure.
Do you have any update on either Brennan? I know this is separate because they were gone, but Brennan or Comey, you guys at Just the News have always been like at the forefront of where this is. Is there any updates on Comey or Brennan? Because I've heard that there's some issue coming now about that there was actually a lot. The media tried to play down the Comey prosecution, but there's a lot of stuff that I'm hearing that's not true. There's a lot more to that.
Yeah, I'm working hard to get my hands on these records that will show the evidence that underlies the indictment. As you know, the indictment was pretty thin. It was pretty sparse. It just said he lied about authorizing the leak of a story. We've learned in follow-up that it involves Clinton, something I said on day one, and Dan Richmond. That's all we know. But there is two bodies of evidence. One is evidence that was solely gathered before a grand jury, so it can't be unsealed until a court unseals it. But we are taking actions to try to get the grand jury materials, which we believe may involve text messages and emails that would show who did what in the course of this leak, which apparently involves Hillary Clinton's email case and Dan Richmond. That's what the early court filings show. The second part is a body of evidence that's classified. Now, that tells you something pretty important, which is that this case involves classified materials. Now, I'm not saying the leak was classified, but to solve the case and to show what James Comey did or didn't do, and Dan Richmond did or didn't do, or the other people did and didn't do, you're going to have to declassify some information. And I'm working to get that information declassified as well. But remember what happened with John Bolton. The first couple stories from the legacy lame media were, oh, he's a victim. He's a victim. This is retribution. It's only about the book. And then, oh, the search warrant returns came out. It's like, oh, wait a second. He had classified information about WMD. And then you stop seeing the stories about poor John Bolton being a victim. It was, oh my God, a former national security advisor was forwarding classified evidence to his email where it got intercepted by enemies, and some of it involved WMD. The John Bolton is a victim story went away very quickly because the facts showed that this was, it looks to be a merited prosecution based on evidence, not on persecution or retribution. I think, based on my reporting, we're going to see a similar outcome for Comey. Now, Brennan is still under investigation. Grand juries are looking at that information. There's a question about his 2023 testimony and him saying, I never wanted the Steele dossier in the intelligence assessment that accused Russia of helping Donald Trump. We now have emails showing he ordered it. So there's a big conflict there. Does that rise to criminality? We'll find out soon. But I would suspect what we would learn about Brennan in the next several weeks. I think we're going to start to learn Comey. And I think the first revelations about Comey might not come in the court case. It might come in a transmission of new evidence to one of the judiciary committees or one of the intel committees. And I think we should be looking at Congress to be the first, perhaps, provider of some bombshell evidence on Comey.
Well, this is a reminder to everybody. If you're hearing about all this stuff and going, I haven't heard about it before, then you need to follow John Solomon and follow Just the News, because this is what these guys do day in and day out. And I honestly, it's, to me, you are the only guy, and Just the News is the only place that actually reports this stuff in a comprehensive, understandable way. So thanks for what you guys are doing. I love having you on. I know that's why I'm saying I can't have you on every day. I mean, I'd love to. And so that's why go follow John Solomon, follow Just the News, because you're not going to get this information from any other news source than them. So thank you for coming on. As always, John, you're so generous with your time.
I love your show, buddy.
And I appreciate what you guys do.
Thanks, man. Good to be with you.
You bet.
Thanks.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.